Man, that's some good coffee. What's up, guys? This is the Christian Metalhead Show. I am your host, Andrew Hopper, CEO here at CMB. Today, we're going to talk about passionate, aggressive worship, like King David. So the goal is to look at how King David worshiped God and how passionate and unashamed he was whenever he did worship God, and to grow in how we worship God ourselves. So let's do this. We're going to look at a Bible verse, 2 Samuel 6. Job, Psalm, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. Wait, that's the wrong way. Okay. So we're actually going to read 2 Samuel 6, 16 through to the end of that chapter 23. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window, and when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. They brought the ark of the Lord and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings before the Lord. After he had finished sacrificing the burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, he blessed the people in the name of the Lord Almighty. Then he gave a loaf of bread, a cake of dates, and a cake of raisins to each person in the whole crowd of Israelites, both men and women, and all the people went to their homes. When David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, "How the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, going around half naked in full view of the slave girls of his servants, as any vulgar fellow would." David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But by these slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in honor." And Michal, daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death. So, kind of what I was looking at there was like the first part. As the ark was entering the city of David, David was leaping and dancing before the Lord. He basically made a fool of himself. He said that he will become even more undignified than that and will be humiliated in his own eyes. At another verse earlier in the chapter, verse 5, David and all of Israel were celebrating with all their might before the Lord. With different instruments. It says with castanets, harps, lyres, timbrels, sistrums, and cymbals. So he worshipped with all of his might. I don't even really know what that means. It's crazy to think about how passionate he was when he worshipped God. Like it said they worshipped with all of their might. And I don't even know what that means. I doubt like most of us today really understand, really passionate worship. David's heart of worship was on full display through passionate dancing. The way he worshipped was very heartfelt and very expressive and unashamed. Oftentimes, that sort of worship will make you look like a fool in some people's eyes. But like the whole point is when like our heart is truly set on how God. The whole point is like how his heart was so set on God that he didn't care about making a fool of himself. He was just so expressive and passionate of how he worshipped. Whenever our hearts are truly centered on God and how good he is, we can worship and not even care about what people might think of us. Worship isn't about being the best singer in the congregation or even the worst. Worship is our expression of love and gratitude to God. This is how David worshipped. He worshipped with childlike love and awe for God. And just today, just in like modern day churches, a lot of us, including me, we're kind of just like stiff. We're kind of just like stiff and confined by a cage of self-consciousness. We don't really seek to keep growing in how we worship God, and not just like in church and with singing, but like in spirit and truth and in our everyday lives. So David is like probably one of the best examples of someone who always wanted to grow in his worship and not, be confined in a safe zone. Worship is supposed to be an extreme form of love and unquestioning devotion. A lot of times we focus too much on the music, what songs to sing, what we look like while doing it. A lot of times we just miss the whole point of worship. But David had a very grateful and thankful heart, and he was just unashamed, and he was always seeking to grow in how he worshiped God and thanking God in whatever ways he could, always praising God in his everyday life. That was why I kind of decided to do this video. I feel like there's a lot of us who are kind of just constricted by the self-conscious safe zones and how we worship God. Worship is supposed to be an expression. We're not really expressing anything like this, and my goal is to kind of break out of that, and that's what I've been trying to learn about, and just to be more passionate about how I worship God. That's why I thought this would be a good topic for this week. Going back to it and talking about Christian metal, I enjoy Christian metal so much is it isn't so restricted. It's very passionate, it's very aggressive, and it's very open, and just real. I thought it'd be cool to bring Christian metal into this. It doesn't have to be metal music to be passionate worship, but that is why I'm sure a lot of us like Christian metal so much, is you just look at it and they're not so restricted, and they're just open and real about whatever they may be going through, and just how God is getting him through it, and just openly worshiping God. And I think Christian metal is just a great example of very passionate worship. Maybe it's just my music taste. There are great worship bands out there in different genres, but just metal is just a great example of this aggressive, passionate worship. It says that worship is an extreme form of love and devotion and passion. So I just want to challenge you guys in this episode to be more passionate in your worship, just being set on how good God is, and that just kind of, when we really have our hearts set on that, we kind of just want to go, yes, you know what I mean? I think true heartfelt worship is like that. It's more expressive. It isn't restricted. It just lets it go. It just lets it all go, all that you're feeling, all that you're going through, and you just let it all out, and you just thank God. But I just want, this episode is kind of shorter. That I thought that would be an interesting topic to talk about. Any of you guys who really want to take up this challenge and grow in worship, challenge you just to read through Psalms. All of the Psalms is more centered on God and just all of that God has done, and it's a great book in the Bible. Check it out, and you really see that heart of worship in those verses. That's going to be it for this Christian Metalhead show. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to comment below any topics you would like me to talk about in the future shows, and you can message me on Facebook or Instagram as well. See you guys in the next show. Christian Metal forever.